They deliberately have a injury surveillance system that is intended to fail. It was built to fail. So that's the vaccine adverse event reporting system, which is the system that is a voluntary system. If you get a vaccine injury, your doctor is supposedly required to report it. But it's up to him to decide whether it was a vaccine injury. But most doctors don't want to report it. Many of them don't even know about the system, but most of them don't recognize vaccine injuries. If you die within 3 months of a vaccine, you should be reported no matter what you died of. That should be part of the database, and it should be, and under the law, if you're part of a clinical trial, every death during a clinical trial must be attributed to the intervention unless proven otherwise. So we should have the same rule that if somebody dies 2 or 3 months after the vaccine, it's assumed to be vaccine related until proven otherwise. In fact, what happens is almost no vaccine injuries get reported. If you're the doctor, and you tell the patient or you tell the family, your dad needs to get this vaccine, or he's going to die, and they say, well, what, could it hurt him? And he says, no. It's totally safe. It's proven safe. He gives it to him. The father then dies 17 days later. And most deaths, 99% of deaths, there's no autopsy. For older people, there's never an autopsy, almost never. Autopsy costs $5,000, so people aren't going to do it. So the doctor's incentive is to say, no, I did not kill your father. Vaccine did not kill him, right?
Right. People die.
It's just human nature.
Yeah.
People die. So they don't report it to VAERS. So nothing gets reported. And actually, we've known this for decades. And important people who are part of the medical mainstream, like David Kessler, who's former Surgeon General, has said this system is completely broken. As a result of that, in 2010, HHS retained or contracted a sub-agency, the Agency for Healthcare Research, Research Quality, HRCQ, to study the VAERS system to see how effective it was. And AHRQ, and to develop a machine counting system that would not have the defects of a voluntary system. And so how do you do that? It's easy to do. You go to the HMOs. The HMOs have all the vaccine records of every patient. They have all the medical claims. And you do, like I said before, a cluster analysis. And you get 95% of the vaccine injuries are going to appear on that.
Yep.
Okay, if there's a vaccine causing diabetes, juvenile diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, tics, Tourette's, you will see that. So, and you can stratify by age, by gender, by in every way, and you can figure out exactly what's causing the problems, and then you can cure it. So AHRCQ developed, not only studied one of the HMOs, an HMO in Boston called Harvard Pilgrim, one of the 10 big ones. They also developed a machine counting system, which they plugged in at Harvard Pilgrim. And what they found was that the machine counting system was collecting something like 40 times the number of injuries, that 40 to 99 times the number of injuries that the voluntary system.
The VAERS system catches, yep.
And what they concluded was that the VAERS system was not just missing 99% of injuries, it was missing more than 99%. That's how bad it is. And the AHRQ, the plan was to roll their machine counting system out to all the other HMOs. And as soon as CDC saw that data and showed an injury rate of 2.7%, so 1 in every 40 people who came in to get a vaccine were suffering some kind of noteworthy injury, they said, we are telling people that injuries only occur 1 in a million. And they not only did they shut down the whole project, but they stopped answering the phone calls of their sister agency. How do I know that? Because HRQ did a peer-reviewed publication. Anybody can look it up. It's called Lazarus 2010. And they say in it, CDC no longer would answer our phone calls once we gave them the data. So Tony Fauci knows that system because he's been told many, many times. That system is on a shelf at HHS, ready to roll out. And if you really wanted to know whether these vaccines were injuring people, they can do it overnight. And yet he left it there and left us with a system that he knows is collecting probably less than 1% of vaccine injuries.
So there's some bad interaction between public health and medicine. Medicine being targeted at helping the individual, public health being targeted at the overall rate of various disorders. Public health clearly feels entitled to lie, right?
Yes.
That from the point of view...
lies.
It claims they're noble lies. Those who look into these lies begin to wonder what the hell is driving them. But nonetheless, because public health feels entitled to lie in order to simplify the story so that people will, for example, get vaccinated to control a contagious disease, what it does, if you don't take the data that then allows people to understand just what the rate of adverse events is it interrupts informed consent.
Yes.
Right? Your doctor doesn't know how dangerous what you're being exposed to is. You don't know how dangerous. And therefore, your doctor accepting that it is worth the risk for you and you're accepting that it is worth the risk for you it's something you're not capable. You're not capable of giving your informed consent because you're misinformed. It's misinformed consent. And so the funny, there's nothing funny about this. But you say the VAERS system is built to fail. We know well that it dramatically undercounts. Is it getting 3%? Is it getting 10%? Is it getting 1%? We don't know. But we know it's not getting the majority of these events. And yet, with these vaccines, there's an off-the-chart signal. An off-the-chart signal that when it is called...
In VAERS.
Right. In VAERS. A system that is...
difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that the system is built...
Well, more than half of the vaccine deaths that have occurred since the system was put in place in 1986, over 40 years, have occurred in the last, since the rollout of these the COVID vaccines.
Yeah.
There's it's not just a hockey stick, it's a right angle turn off of the graph.
Yeah. No, and so that tells you something. And then when that is pointed out to the authorities, what you get back is, here are the reasons that we don't believe the VAERS data, which even if that was correct, it leaves you with no understanding of how dangerous this is. It leaves you with no data, which it's not the same thing as an indication that they're safe.
Yeah.
So the whole thing, it behaves like something that doesn't want to know. And the fact is, when your health, or worse, your children's health, is dependent on some system that claims to have rendered something safe, but is actively avoiding the information that would tell you that it had made an error, that is the opposite of safe.
Yeah, well, and here's how kind of pervasive it is and how it's infiltrated the media, because everybody is part of this, has been co-opted into this conspiracy to tell people, to gaslight people who say that they've been injured, to marginalize them, to silence them, to deplatform them. It's not just me who's talking about the generalized risks, and talking about science, but it's a mother or a dad or a child who lost a parent who says, here's what happened when they got the vaccine, has a video of, the parent going into seizure, or the child going into seizures immediately after vaccination. And if you put that out, you will be disappeared. So when this is early in the pandemic, Hank Aaron was part of, who I knew, was part of a national campaign, because blacks are very, very vaccine resistant. A long history of mistrust of the medical establishment. And so the CDC was rounding up civil rights leaders and sports leaders who are African-American to publicly take the vaccine. So Hank Aaron went on stage and got the vaccine at Emory University, and 17 days later, he dies. And I wrote an article for the Defender for Children's Health Defense and talked about it on my podcast. And I said, I never said his death was caused by the vaccine, and nobody accused me of saying that. What I said is that his death was part of a wave of deaths that we're seeing in elderly people immediately after vaccination, which is completely documented. And I was immediately attacked by the New York Times, by USA Today, CNN, ABC, NBC, thousands of news organizations literally around the world who were saying that I was lying. And the New York Times said that they had spoken to the Atlanta coroner, and that the Atlanta coroner had told them that Hank Aaron did not suffer from a vaccine injury, that it was not vaccine related. So I called the Fulton County coroner because I wanted to know what test they use to make that determination, because, mostly vaccine injuries and deaths don't leave fingerprints. So you don't know whether the person died of a heart attack or a stroke that they would have had anyway, or whether the vaccine contributed. And I was curious about how they had such certitude about that determination. And when I got the coroner on the phone, they said to me, "We never saw Hank Aaron's body. We never performed an autopsy. The family buried that body, and nobody ever did a postmortem on it." And yet the New York Times reported a lie. And there's just this incredible impulse when I reported my conversation, it was just silence. There was no effort by the Times or any of these other papers to correct their error. It's quite extraordinary. Everybody is part of this effort to make sure that people believe the vaccines are completely safe and completely effective. And anybody who disagrees with that gets, punished.
Yeah, anybody who asks questions is punished, and the punishment, I think, it is largely going to be invisible to anybody who hasn't been on the wrong end of it. But the punishment is absolutely ruthless. It is gaslighting, and I must say, it's not the first time I've been demonized. It is the first time I've been demonized by something that clearly has a many $million-dollar budget. It is a whole different experience. And the idea that there are billions, I presume hundreds of billions of dollars at stake in the market for COVID treatments and vaccines, and that a cost of doing business would be some number of millions to just simply demonize those small number of people who didn't get the memo and raised obvious questions about all-cause mortality or number needed to treat or absolute versus relative measures of effectiveness, right? Of course, they're going to be successful at controlling the narrative, especially when they have partners in the tech platforms who are willing to do their censoring for them.